Okay. Tom Summers is here. Anna Webb.
Here.
Ed Lopez.
Here.
Carolyn Schofield.
Here.
David Harris.
Here.
Jen Dirks.
Here.
Matthew Vasilakis.
Here.
Gary Johns. You're muted, Gary.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hammond
Here.
and Chair Price.
Here. Okay. Do we have any public comments?
We do. Let me pull up the screen again to double check. 1 second. Okay, we have one public comment submitted today, Chair. That is from Erica Morgan, and this is for non-agenda public comment.
Okay.
So give me 1 second while I unmute her. And let me get the timer ready for 3 minutes. Okay. Hi, Erica.
Hey, Sebastian. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I've got this right under 3 minutes, so I'm going to go. So good afternoon to members of all of the committee. My name is Erica Morgan. I'm an independent clean energy consultant working for private and nonprofit clients from my home base in the beautiful Little Italy section of downtown San Diego. I want to bring to the committee's attention an opportunity for SDCP and its communities of concern, an opportunity we fear may be in danger of being lost. I speak today for my client, Groundwork San Diego, Chollas Creek. Groundwork is a community-based nonprofit that provides environmental education, enhancement, and enrichment, including through clean energy and energy beneficial activities. Groundwork serves the Chollas Creek watershed with a focus on the neighborhoods of City Heights, Encanto, Barrio Logan, and Southeast San Diego. Groundwork has sought for years to bring clean, accessible, and affordable energy to the residents of its geography. The state's environmental justice community has also prioritized this, and through their work gave rise to the Community Solar Green Tariff and the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff programs. Groundworks has hoped that these programs would finally enable a viable community solar program to serve its communities. But the current programs don't work in urban communities. Currently, these programs are implemented by the 3 IOUs, and they follow a model designed around the needs of utility scale solar. Smaller projects, particularly in urban areas, have been unable to meet the eligibility requirements and other criteria. Even with a friendly community solar developer advising us, the barriers to participation have proven insurmountable. CPUC rules allow community choice agencies to request their share of the program capacity and funding. However, there is a deadline. If CCAs don't act by January 1st, 2021, the program allocations will stay with the utilities. CCAs may also tailor their program designs to the needs of their communities. East Bay Community Energy and Clean Power Alliance have already done so. We urge this committee to emphasize the importance of this program to the CDCP board and staff. CDCP must claim its share of program allocation before January 1st. Without this action, the 5 participating cities will lose the opportunity to shape a program that can bring affordable, clean, renewable electricity to those who need it the most. Thank you for this opportunity to comment, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you.
Erica, I have a question. This is Anna Webb, and I'm the secretary, and I take minutes. Can you please repeat your name and your organization?
Yes, my name is Erica, E-R-I-K-A Morgan, Morgan. My company is Energetic Management Associates.
Thank you so much.
Chair Price, would you?
Any more questions for Ms. Morgan?
Looks like Ed has a question.
Yeah, I can't see, so.
Shall I just go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, not so much a question, just a comment. One, thank you, Erica, for coming and presenting the comment and the topic. I was with Groundwork San Diego as they were pursuing the Advanced Energy Community Vision for a disadvantaged community. I've talked about in the past too that CCAs elsewhere, particularly the new CCA entity in Los Angeles County, is pursuing partnerships with community-based organizations to provide access to disadvantaged communities for renewable energy. Erica hit it right on the head that the existing tariffs implemented and maintained by the IOUs have not provided any successful project, enhanced community renewable, or there's even a community solar tariff. In my mind, they represent tremendous opportunities for CCAs, and to the extent possible that we could have San Diego Community Power chiming in and indicating possibly an interest in pursuing. Again, I think it would serve a number of the goals and objectives overall for SDCP. It provides potentially access to communities of concern, to those who otherwise not be able to access green and renewable energy, and the projects themselves, particularly if community-based organization and nonprofits within the communities act as project leaders, can provide economic opportunity and job opportunity for individuals in the locale. So I think there's a number of possible and positive elements that would come on out of such considerations.
Thank you. I think maybe somebody might want to bring this up on when we get to item number 9, so that we could actually officially send it to the board.
If I may chime in here, Chair Price, I've been in communications with Erica on this matter, and staff is actively pursuing it. We're aware of the deadline and the outstanding circumstance that this was established before SDCP was created. I will provide an update. We're having conversations with the PUC on how to make this work for SDCP, and I'm happy to provide an update next month. So it is on our radar. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay, and be that as it may be, I would still like it to be part of our number 9 so that we could officially give our input. I mean, I appreciate what you're doing and what the board is doing, but it was just brought to us, and I would like to make it official that we support whatever you guys are doing.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely talk about it during item number 9.
Okay. Any other public comments, Sebastian?
There are no other public comments, Chair.
Okay. Any items to be added, withdrawn, or reordered on the agenda?
Chair Price, I've noticed that Ty has not joined us. So I would ask that we start off with item number 6, followed by item number 7. So basically, if I may, since I don't see Ty here, we could do 6, 7, 8, leave 5 for last, and then obviously we'll do number 9 for the standing item, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, it's okay with me. Is it okay with everybody else on the committee?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, well then there it is. So we'll move to number 6, update on community member communications guide.
Yes. And for this, Sean from Civilian will be taking the lead. And let me stop sharing my screen so I can pull up the actual document.
Thanks, Sebastian. Hey, everyone. Good to see everybody again. It was good speaking with each of you individually the past couple weeks. As you see on the agenda, we've been moving forward on several fronts, some of which we'll talk about today, but one of them has been formalizing a social media policy. It's a document that Sebastian will pull up shortly here. We're still in the process of kind of going through, reviewing, confirming with SDCP legal advisors, kind of any of the particulars about it. But from a general sense, this is a document that we drew up that I'm sorry, I'm confusing my documents right now. This is the communications guide. So this reflects the conversation we had a couple meetings ago about how we can work together, both in providing information to members of your community, but also creating a system and a feedback loop so that when you get feedback or when you have questions that you may not be equipped to answer at the time, that information gets back to staff and to civilians so we can make sure that we're arming you with the right information to answer those. So again, this is an evolved version of what we looked at last time. And Sebastian, I don't know, do you feel that I should kind of like go through it point by point, or what would be the most useful use of time for the group here?
Yeah, so I feel that this will be a living document that will be ever changing as we grow as an organization, as we figure out what works best. And so that's why you see it more as an update on what we discussed last month. And again, we just wanted to make sure that it looks good right now so we can start working on some things. I do realize that there are a few other things to work on. And Gary, I know you sent me an email before this, and if you don't mind bringing that up, I would appreciate it.
Yes, well, so just moving down, can you scroll down to the item that's on communications or postings on the city websites? I noted that our previous discussion has been on wanting consistency on the branding of things like email addresses and such. And so my simple point was that in a discussion in just the city update or city events in Enos, we were discussing, well, we may have to put that off. But I pointed out, we should do this right from the start. So I'm hoping that we can find a simple solution that doesn't involve a lot of staff time or expense. And I think there are many ways that we can do that, where we'd all have new email addresses that would have a consistent branding with each of us in each city. And also it would give us a separate email to do things like Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts that wouldn't get tangled up with our other social media accounts. So basically, I'm just suggesting that we fairly quickly work on, well, I'm not sure it has to be that quick. The question is, when do we want to roll out on the city websites? And I'm just saying that before we do that, let's have this consistent branding of email addresses for committee members.
Yeah, and again, Gary, I appreciate you bringing this up. I do see your point and your the value that you're bringing up, especially if we want to make sure that for the cities that you are representing, that there's a correct email address that the community business members can contact you and not have to put up your personal account. What I would suggest, and again, as I mentioned to you, Chair and Gary, is this is a living document, and we are still months out from our first phase. But my goal would be to find a solution to this between now and next month, so that way we can have that solidified. I have some ideas, and I'll be reaching out to you all individually to get all of your input on this. But yeah, that's the one thing that I felt it was worth bringing up, Gary, and if that sounds good to everyone else, we can move forward with that. But I'll pause right there.
Yeah, well, Sebastian, I appreciate that.
Okay, Civilian, were you done explaining this document?
Yeah, sorry about that, Chair Price. There were a couple of updates made based on our conversation the last time we met, and to be completely frank with you, I don't off the top of my head recall which those are, but as Sebastian mentioned, this is a living and breathing document. It will exist. We'll make sure that everyone has a copy of it. And please, if you have any feedback or any concerns, such as what Gary just brought up, we'd be happy to continue to evolve this and change it over time. But one of our ultimate goals coming out of this conversation is to get a general consensus on the overall approach, so that we can start creating some of these platforms, like a shared Google Drive or things along those lines, so that we can start building out some of these platforms that we can, again, start using once we get closer and closer to rolling out the brand in market.
Okay. Sebastian, can you or have you sent just this document to the committee? I see it in a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't see a document all by itself that we could maybe print out and go over later on individually.
Yeah. I sent it, I believe, earlier this week. Happy to resend it. So it's at the top of your inbox. And I do want to apologize for sending some documents late. I know that's a no-no for me, and I did do that. So my apologies for that. We were working out some last-minute things. So I appreciate the flexibility. But yeah, I'm happy to resend these documents individually. So it's at the top of your inbox.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're ready to move to number 7.
I've got my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see.
Okay.
Hand, so.
Well, just very quickly, there is the thing about it talks as though we have a Google Drive with documents on it currently, and I'm not aware of being invited to a Google Drive for those documents. Just a little clarification.
There's no party that you're missing so far. No, I think one of the outcomes is we wanted to make sure that we had consensus with this group. We will now move forward with building that drive, uploading those documents. I mean, as you probably know, the documents are being created in real time, kind of on a parallel path. But what we can probably do is set up some sort of notification, so that when a new document is uploaded, everyone will find out about it. But yeah, those don't yet exist. That's a next step for us, is to create them.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. So I'm assuming we can move on to number 7. Item number 7.
All right, and let me pull back up the presentation.
And Sebastian, Ty hasn't reached out, or have we reached out to Ty to see if he's going to be able to make it today?
Yeah, my apologies for that. I texted him, and I'm assuming something major must have come up. So if for some reason he's not able to make it at the end, we can ask him to return next month. So at least the slide deck is with you all. But understanding his type of work, it just can change out of nowhere. So here we go. Okay. All right, and for this presentation, it will be Paul Sacco from Calpine Energy Solutions.
Hi, good afternoon, committee. My name is Paul Socco. I'm the manager of CCA implementation for Calpine Energy Solutions. As you may know, we are the data management service provider for San Diego Community Power, as well as 18 other CCAs up and down California. Today, we wanted to present to you the proposal or the proposed San Diego Community Power net energy metering program. So before we kind of get into what the program that SDCP is going to be providing, just wanted to go a quick overview of what net energy metering is. I don't want to get into too many details, but just at a high level, net energy metering is a special billing arrangement where customers have a self-generation system. Usually it's solar, and that generation can offset their normal consumption, or even in some cases provide them credits for their over generation. They do have a new meter in place generally that tracks the electricity both on the consumption and generation side, and that's done so over a 12-month period, also called the relevant period. And again, customers can earn credits for excess. Next slide, please. So as far as eligibility is concerned, just the basic eligibility, it's available to residential and commercial customers, both small, medium, large, commercial, even industrial. For SDCP specifically, they're going to offer NEM for current NEM customers, SDG&E NEM customers, as well as any future NEM customers. So customers that currently are not on NEM but may change to NEM at some point. And the various different tariffs that's available for participation is the normal NEM, NEM-V, which is a virtual NEM, and then also VMASH, which is virtual multi-family affordable solar housing. And that's the latter two are kind of aggregated NEM, so it's rooftop, but it's not necessarily tied to one house or one specific customer. And then also the SDCP program will accept customers that are currently on NEM 1.0, even though that's currently grandfathered and will be going away, and then customers currently on NEM 2.0. Next slide, please. As far as NEM enrollment for SDCP customers, the official mass enrollment, automatic mass enrollment of NEM customers, existing current NEM customers, is not scheduled to start until phase 3. So we'll let phase 1 and phase 2 come along, and then when phase 3 starts, that's when we'll start to bring in NEM customers en masse. And we'll do so actually on a monthly basis for 12 months. So what's going to happen is customers will end their most recent relevant period with SDG&E, and then once they're trued up by SDG&E, SDCP will then enroll them into their program. So what does what that does is it does not affect the customer's last relevant period with SDG&E, shortening the relevant period, potentially affecting any credits that they may have built up, or in some cases, causing them to have a large bill if they haven't had the chance to offset any of their consumption over the last few months. However, with phase 1 and phase 2 customers, even though there aren't going to be any NEM customers originally in the phase-in, at some point, some of those businesses and even some of the municipal or city accounts could change to NEM because there's projects currently in the works, and so they can, once they switch from being non-NEM to NEM, SDCP will retain them as a customer and under a NEM program. And that's why it's important for us to determine the NEM program now. Even though we're not enrolling customers en masse, there will be customers ramping on as NEM in 2021, and we want to make sure that we're providing service to them appropriately. In all cases, though, customers still continue to go through SDG&E to start their NEM interconnection, and they go through all of the same process that they would have regardless of who their generation provider is. Next slide, please. So we go over now really the meat and potatoes of the NEM program and how customers are going to be. As I mentioned earlier, when customers are enrolled from SDG&E to SDCP, they're going to have just finished their last relevant period with SDG&E, and they're going to start a new relevant period for both SDG&E and SDCP. The relevant period is the shorter of 12 months or whenever they terminate service. So a relevant period could end if the customer opts out or otherwise terminates service on their account, moves out, and that effectively ends their relevant period. As with all other types of CCA billing, NEM is still going to be, or NEM is falling under the same boat. San Diego Gas and Electric is still going to administer their version of their NEM program for the transmission and distribution side of the bill, and SDCP will administer the billing portion of the generation side of the bill. But there are differences between commercial and residential customers when it comes to NEM program, the NEM program specifically. Next slide, please. So for residential billing, and let me first preface this with what we've discussed with San Diego Community Power staff is that to make the transition easier for customers, whether they're supplied by SDG&E or supplied by San Diego Community Power, that the programs be similar, so that it's not jarring when they switch over, something that they're already used to. But we do want to make it a little bit, so want to make it similar, but hopefully more beneficial for them in the long run. So for residential customers, their consumption and generation is going to be tracked for the entirety of the 12-month relevant period, or however long that relevant period is, if it's less than 12 months. On a month-to-month basis, they're not going to receive any billable charges from SDCP, though they may receive or they may have charges from SDG&E on the transmission and distribution side. I think they'll still, if I'm not mistaken, still have a minimum charge for customers, especially customers on NEM 2.0 that have non-bypassable charges that they'll need to pay. But on the SDCP side, what they'll receive is an accounting of the activity from that month, whether they were net generator or net consumer, and then an overall tracking of their status for the entirety of the relevant period. In both kilowatt hours and also dollars, retail dollars, either generated in the form of credits or dollars that they owe if they're a net consumer. At the end of the relevant period, their net consumption or net generation is all aggregated together. If they owe, then if they are a net consumer and they owe, they will be presented a bill. And if they are a net generator, they are eligible for credits at a what's called the next slide, please. For commercial customers, and again, this is similar to San Diego Gas and Electric. For commercial customers, they're on a billing plan, more commonly called monthly settlement, but annual cash out, whereby customers, if they consume energy, more energy than they generate, SDG&E, and in this case SDCP, will charge them for their consumption. So they'll have a bill at the end of that month. If at the end of the month they are over generators, the retail credits are banked for future use. So if in month A they over generate, say, $100 in credits, in month 2, if they consume $200, we'll pull $100 from their escrowed credits and then present them with a bill for $100 and effectively settling them now for those 2 months. Even though that will happen throughout the entirety of the relevant period. At the end of the relevant period, though, again, any net consumption charges are due and payable, and then any net generation credits would also be provided and credited at the compensation amount. Next slide, please. And then just a brief overview of what happens at the end of the relevant period. The bill or the credit is presented to the customer. In some cases, credits are paid out or they can't be rolled over onto the account, and that'll be first utilized if and when the customer has charges in the next month. And a couple of things again about the true up or the cash out. When a customer is trued up, whatever tracked kilowatt hours, whether it's consumption or generation, happened for the previous relevant period, that is then reset and starts at 0 when the new relevant period commences. Lastly, the net surplus compensation value right now is to be determined, and that will be determined, and Sebastian, correct me if I'm wrong, that'll be determined and approved in January when the other rates for SDCP are set. Yeah. Good. I think that should be the end, so I will open it up to any questions from the committee.
Yeah, Tara.
So you specified net metering 1.0 and 2.0 in here. As you likely know, the NEM 3 proceeding is underway. Utilities are proposing changes that would be happening potentially as early as January. And by the time rollout happens, there could be net metering 3.0 or a other successor tariff with a different name. So I just want to ensure that anyone who goes solar will be included and protected.
Yes, so NEM 3.0, I think the start of the official proceedings will be in the spring of 2021 with with an implementation beginning of 2022. So Calpine will be engaged in those proceedings, and we'll work with SDCP staff to ensure that their program will accommodate for the 3 different types. So whether it's NEM 1.0, 2.0, or NEM 3.
Okay, what they're proposing is the utilities, which I don't think they will get, but it's starting in January of next year is some of what they're offering. So I just want to ensure that the NEM 3 or related program does get included in the PowerPoint or the what's voted upon by the.
Yes, I believe it will be.
Any more questions?
I have one.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah. Hey, thanks there, Calpine. This is such a departure from the way I've always done business. You know, I wish I could be in a room with all you people, but can I assume that everybody here is familiar with net metering? Are there people here that are kind of rolling their eyes because they may not have ever experienced net metering, or maybe you could ask others who might be in the dark about net metering. I did glean a lot from your presentation. My first question was now moot, which is those of us that are already net metering clients will just carry on. It'll be kind of seamless. Is that correct?
That is correct. Obviously, you'll the billing will change. You'll now be split, T&D and generation. But other than that, should be fine.
Yeah, thanks. So, is there anybody in the virtual room here that is new to net metering? Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Good.
Any more questions?
I see Tara has her hand up.
I do, but I'll wait if others who haven't spoken yet have any questions first.
The only hand I see raised is Tom Summers, and I think he just asked a question.
I'm done.
Okay. I just wanted confirmation. So say I'm a solar customer, my annual true up is in November and with SDG&E, and I get moved to San Diego Community Power in January. There's been concerns about people losing credits, NEM credits. So just seeing how that transition works. Will my new annualized NEM bill be January? How exactly does that work when you first transition over?
Yeah, so the transition for NEM customers in mass won't start until phase 3. And it will coincide, and it will happen on a monthly basis, and it'll coincide with customers' relevant period ending with SDG&E. So let's just say, for example, phase 3 starts in January of 2022. If the end of your relevant period is, say, January 5, 2022 with SDG&E, you'll get trued up by SDG&E on that January bill, and then you'll be enrolled with SDCP in January, and from your January to February bill, that's your first month of the relevant period with SDCP. So
and if you have,
so we're not, sorry, go ahead.
That's great. That's perfect for consumers. If you have excess credit with SDG&E, what happens to those credits?
So SDG&E will true you up. That's all on the SDG&E side, and it starts brand new, at least for the SDCP side.
But they can't roll over.
It'll roll over. I presume, and I'm not from SDG&E, so I'm not familiar with their billing, the intricacies of their billing, but I assume if they roll it over, they can use it for the transmission and distribution side, but don't quote me on that. What they can't use it for is SDCP charges.
Okay, I think that'd be interesting to find out. And I'm also hopeful we can help weigh in. When Solana Energy Alliance launched, they mimicked all of the current SDG&E rates, which I believe San Diego Community Power, I hope, can come up with more favorable rates for solar, electric vehicles, solar in communities of concern. So I'm hoping this looks like your presentation today was kind of the beginning, but I'm hoping that we can weigh in and help recommend rates that are going to encourage the further adoption of rooftop solar and electric vehicles and equity.
Yeah, so I'll just take a small stab at that. So the rates, the rates would be, I guess, in essence, separate from the NEM program. So the rates will be set, and that'll be set, based off of the goals of this committee and SDCP. But the program that I presented today would be integrated in with those rates. So, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Are you good, Tara? Okay.
Yeah.
Any more? Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions from the committee? Okay, so we'll move on to item number 8. Just a minute, Sebastian, you haven't heard from Ty, huh?
Actually, I have. He just confirmed that he'll join after the next presentation that Sean will do.
Okay. Thank you. So item number 8, provide input on San Diego Community Power product names. And who was doing that one, Sebastian? You or Cal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chair Price, thank you. As I mentioned, Sean from Civilian will be taking the lead on this. And again, we're excited to get your input on some of the cool names that they've come up with for our products, potential products. Sean will go into further detail, but take it away, Sean.
Sebastian, hello again, everyone. We can dig right in to the slides, Sebastian, if you don't mind. Is it on a separate deck, maybe?
Hold on, give me 1 second.
Sure. Just as a primer for the group, you'll recall in previous meetings we've gone through our brand identity process. We've selected a visual identity, a logo, a color scheme. We're actually in the process right now of sharing the overall sort of brand aesthetic and design with SDCP staff. So we're very excited to roll that out in the coming weeks here. We actually have an event coming up in early December where we'll be rolling out the actual naming system to the public, which will be great. It's actually an upcoming climate action event. I know Matt on the phone here is very familiar with that. But in terms of the naming itself, what we've done since last we spoke is go through, excuse me, is go through an exercise to come up with the actual program names themselves. And I think some of you may have already received this deck, so I will be fairly brief in going through it. But as with anything else, we try to be pretty rigorous and we try to do some research and look around at what else is out there in the category. So if we go to the next slide here, you'll see that we did some homework on all the other CCAs out there and really understanding how they're framing up their program names. There are a variety of factors and considerations for this. A lot of these names that you'll see between this slide and the next slide are, they tend to be descriptive about the type of power they're receiving. Some of them are more tied to the brand itself. But what we see in a lot of these is naming systems, right? So the names are somehow related to each other. They speak of tiers, they speak of levels of service. And what we kind of realized as we look through all of them, and we can go to the next slide here, is some of the key takeaways for us were that as we give ourselves a brief on how we want to come up with a system, for us it's more important for the name to be functional so that it can be essentially a label that people attach to a certain program, because realistically, Joe consumer out there is not going to really take much value from a name. So we want it to be functional. We want it to be a label. It doesn't necessarily need to be complex or descriptive. Actually, in the next bullet right there, it's better to be simple. We want these to roll off the tongue. We want them to be simple. And the final point there is a lot of the names that we saw in our research sort of diluted the brand. They created a new concept that kind of disassociated itself with the core brand for that CCA. So instead of doing that, we want to support the brand. We want to uplift the brand. We want all of the names that we introduce as our product suite over time to really drive that brand and be associated with us. It's more important for these to be products within the branded house than completely separate products. So to that point, when we talk about supporting our brand, we obviously go back to our brand. So we can go to the next slide. Proud, trustworthy, fresh, local, visionary. These are the brand attributes. These don't get old for me. Hopefully they don't get old for you as well, because we're going to keep sharing them because that's our direction for everything we do for the brand. So what do we have? We have one naming system we're going to go through today. We know at the initial launch, there will only be a couple of tiers that we're offering to customers across the 5 cities. That said, for proof of concept, we want to try to extend out several different names, several different types of programs, several different types of product types, just so that we can see in the future, as SDCP starts to offer those additional programs, that we have a great system that can support them. So I think on the next slide, we actually have the names themselves. Oh, sorry, there's the brand. Next is the names. Sorry, I haven't looked at these slides in a couple of days. So we've created a system that plays off of the word power. Power on is going to be your automatic popped in. Power Plus, once we're ready, is sort of a mid-tier piece. Power Full, if we end up going in with a 100% renewable option in the beginning, that speaks obviously to Power Full. Power Partner is an opportunity for us to look at whether it's special relationships with commercial partners or other types of relationships. And then Power Pro is when we really get into carbon-free, the pinnacle, the sort of the top of the heap that represents Power Pro to us. So what's nice about this system is it has legs. We can continue to build on it, but at least in what we know that we want to roll out next year. And then in the future, we feel that this is a good territory for us to play in. We did enlist the help with a cultural competency advisor that we have. We've brought her on before. And she recommended that given the slight play on words here, specifically in relation to the Spanish language audience, we would keep these in English. So if you're Spanish speaking, you'd receive a brochure in Spanish, but you would still get this name in English. You would see Power On. You wouldn't see a Spanish translation of that because they don't quite translate perfectly. And what we don't want to do is be ham-fisted in how we reach out to the audience. So we want to be true to the brand and true to their language. So we're going to keep these in English, but of course, trans-adapt everything else. That's pretty much the scope of this particular conversation, but would love to hear any questions or any reactions from the group.
Questions? I have one. The Power Partner, would that also include maybe community solar or other unique types of projects?
It could. I think that's actually one that we had thought could be sort of an umbrella term unto itself. So it could be a variety of different, relationships or partnerships that we have, whether it's corporate, there could be sort of municipal programs. That one could take a variety of different forms. And again, I think one of the things I want to make sure I'm clear on is that it's not that we have specific concrete definitions for each of these. Based on when SDCP is ready to roll out new programs, we can look at some of these names that already exist, say, oh, this is a great use for this, or let's go back to the drawing board and find something that also fits within this system, but is most appropriate for that particular program, whether it's NEM or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and if I may chime in for a minute, obviously we have more names than programs available. And sorry, I really need a haircut. Wow. So you see the first three options: Power On, Power Plus, and Power Full. And these are primarily the ones that we want to get your feedback on. And we have the default, that is the 50% renewable, and we have the premium product, which is 100% renewable. Those are the ones that we've gotten direction from the board on in the previous months. And the reason why you're seeing this now is because we need to have a series of steps, check marks, be filled as we work with Combine for the our call center, as we get ready for our enrollment notice and we build out the graphic for that. So the last two are more like a bonus, that they're there as an opportunity. We can also definitely add more to it. So I really liked, Eddie, your idea of the community solar. If maybe we want to do like a different name for community solar, I think that's something we can definitely take a look at. Going back to the top three, so Power On and Power Full would be the most relevant ones. The Power Plus, just to let you all know, staff is thinking of adding a third tier as we gear up for phase 3. It wouldn't be something that we would adopt for phase 1 and phase 2. So again, just wanted to give you a little bit more background on all of these. I personally really like those, and I did push back on Civilian on the cultural competency and making sure that this, for someone who's not a native English speaker such as myself, that it's easily understandable. For the longest time, I thought powerful was kind of awkward, but then I realized it's powerful, like powerful. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. but I felt like just to share a little bit more.
So Sebastian, you said you guys are considering an additional level between power on and power full?
That's correct.
And what kind of level would that be?
It
Like
would be
5% or something, or 35%?
No.
it would be between the default and the premium. So around 75%. That hasn't been settled yet because that would be for phase 3. But this is just an idea of the names that we're thinking about. And that's why we wanted to get your input on those.
And personally, I like these. Yes, Tara.
I think if Power Pro, I know you said that's not a priority right now, ensuring that's GHG free doesn't have a stronger word than 100% renewable. I like Power On, I like Powerful. Looking at the other organizations, I think these are much better than the other programs. Power Plus to me is the least strong of those top 3. I don't know if we'd want to include like Proudly or Positively or something for potential one, but I like them.
Okay.
We can always go back and look at other options for that. I mean, once, I think part of it is, again, this is all relative. So we want to know where they net out in terms of service fat. Is it 75%? Is it, like where exactly is that landing? And that might influence the names themselves. But I think most importantly is relative to one another. Do these names, A, make intuitive sense, and B, fit within the brand? And are they simple enough that people can remember if called upon? That's sort of our barometer here.
I was thinking maybe to Tara's point, because it doesn't look like, to your point, what you just mentioned, Power Plus doesn't go with Power On and Power Full, in my mind. But my mind is a very interesting place to go. I was thinking more like Power Up instead of Power Plus. But that's just,
I like that.
I like that. You're good, Chair Price.
Yeah, well, that's 50-50, Sebastian.
I wrote it down.
That's a pretty good percentage.
It's lasted a while. Win some, lose some. So is this this is what civilians came up with to present? There's no like runner up or anything like that? I mean, I'm happy with this, so.
We had a couple different directions that we put in front of staff, I think 3 total, and each of them was in a system format. But by far, I think this was the one that the group felt was on brand, and we wanted to come to the board and obviously to yourselves as well with a strong recommendation.
Okay. Are we done with this presentation?
I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tom. I have to look over because you don't raise your hand in the thing. You raise your hand on the other thing. I got to get used to looking at the other thing.
Yeah, I'm good with all of the first 3 and the power partner. I'm not wasn't surprised about that. I knew that there was going to have to be some way to designate those guys. This might seem like a dumb question, but greenhouse gas free, does that refer to hydro as well as this usual renewables, or we're not talking about nuclear, are we?
Yep.
Right, Tom. This would be hydro, large hydro, as defined by the state of California.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks. That answers my question.
Mm-hmm.
And to Tom's point, I think we as an entity and as a committee need to really stay on point with that nuclear, because I've noticed around the state that nuclear is starting to get slid into the conversation, for organizations that are 4, 5, 6 years old. So that's a powerful question, and we need to stay on that too. Yes, Tara.
Sebastian, I thought your answer just now to Tom's question was just hydro. It's my understanding nuclear is also included in the GHG free.
Right, under the California definition, sorry, but for us, we wouldn't be looking at nuclear.
Okay, because I know San Diego Community Power, the language, a lot of drama surrounded about a year ago was about removing nuclear, and there was wording that remained that said would like discourage nuclear, but it did not say it would avoid nuclear. So I just want to be sure we
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm happy to come back with Bill and Cody to refine that a little bit more. But based on at least the integrated resource plan that we submitted just recently, and that's up on our website, that doesn't include nuclear, and that's a 10-year planning document.
that would be great to discuss at a future meeting, just so we're all on the same page, because people are still concerned in the community that it's including nuclear. So if it's not, that would be great to know, and we can help educate people that ask us.
Sure.
And like I said, to Tara's point, some of the verbiage in the founding documents kind of avoided eliminating that absolutely. And again, as I see around other CCAs around the state, nuclear is becoming a major part of their conversation now because it wasn't, absolved in the beginning. So
right.
We just want to be cognizant of that fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Important conversation to keep on having for us.
Any other questions? Okay, we don't need to vote. Sean, you're just going to take our general consensus back and say they said it was all right?
I would love to.
All righty.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time as always. Good to see you all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate you and all the work that you guys are doing. Sebastian, what about Ty? Because we're running out of time.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Ty.
How's it going, everybody?
All right, how you doing, young man?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
Had to get that last wave in, huh, before you got to us. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I always had to get one more.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're ready for you, sir.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Should I be sharing my screen here or?
I got it. Just let me know. Next slide.
Great. So I'm here to talk to everybody today about the power charge and difference adjustment, everybody's favorite subject. And this is a dull piece of utility accounting, but it turns out to be extremely important for CCA programs across the state, and certainly for STCP. So I want to I'm going to provide some information about it, and then I want to leave some time for questions and so forth. Just to give a little bit of that background, this is probably the most important regulatory issue that has been occupying CCA programs since they started in 2010. And it's consumed an incredible amount of time and effort. It's been a epic struggle, I think, in many respects. So what is the PCIA? It is essentially an exit fee that direct access customers and CCA customers have to pay when they leave utility service. And the idea is that the utility purchased a substantial amount of power on behalf of a certain number of customers. Those customers then departed utility service for CCA service or DA service. And the utility still has those costs to pay down, but without the revenue coming from customers to pay it down. So you may hear the term customer indifference. That is the legal standard that's used, customer indifference. Sometimes, so if you hear that, typically in connection with the PCIA, that is what is being referred to. So the PCIA, let me just cover some basics here. The formula is at the highest level is simple. The formula to determine what the PCIA is that you take the total cost of the utility portfolio. So all the contracts, the utility owned generation, you aggregate that into one big number, and then you subtract the market price benchmark, which is a composite benchmark that's assembled each year to reflect market prices. And then you apply that to the amount of power that's anticipated or that's being used in a subsequent year. So the idea here is to capture just the above market cost of power and charge that to CCA customers. This number changes and it's based on the vintage or the year that the customer departed. So in theory, the long-term contracts that the utilities hold should expire over the course of several years, and this number should go down to zero. Although we've primarily seen only increases, not very many decreases, and it's reset each year in what's called the ERA forecast proceeding, which is a Public Utilities Commission proceeding. So you may be wondering, why does the formula just capture the above market cost of the resources? And the reason for that is the idea here is to compensate the utilities for just that above market price, with the concept being that the below market or market cost of the contracts are still marketable to third parties and so forth. And so utilities not compensated for that. What's been happening with the PCIA over time is that as the utility portfolio costs have remained pretty stable, and the market price benchmarks, which reflect the cost of power in the market across the state, is going down. And so what that means is, because this is essentially a subtraction problem, the PCIA has been going up. So we all want to enjoy and are, I think, glad to see the cost of power coming down in the market, especially for renewables, which were very expensive when they were, when solar, for example, and wind were first being introduced into the market. They were substantially more expensive than they are now, and that cost is coming down. We all benefit from that, but at the same time, if you're a CCA customer, you also pay for that. The utility customers do not pay the PCIA per se. These costs are wrapped up into their rate structure, although a recent decision requires the utilities to actually start showing the PCIA for their own customers as well as CCA customers. So that's the basic idea. So it's the idea is to capture the above market cost of power and charge that to CCA customers. And go ahead, please, Sebastian. The problems and issues here are several. Currently Solana Beach customers, Solana Beach is the only CCA program operating in SDG&E territory. The PCIA makes up a little over 10% of their bill each month, and so that's a pretty hefty figure. And we're looking at that figure going up over time. So if you think about that, that is that Solana Beach has set their rates just a little bit lower than SDG&E's, and so if you think about it, if we assume that the rates are just about even, that's money that Solana Beach could be using to invest in other resources, in programs, whether any number of different types of programs. That could be that money could be used, for example, to provide more beneficial rates to rooftop solar owners. That money could be used to fund energy efficiency programs or local resource builds, microgrids, any number of things. So we're talking about a significant amount of the CCA program's budget being consumed by the PCIA. The other issue that we persistently run into is that this thing is, the PCIA rate is all over the place. Year to year, it changes quite a bit, and it makes financial and resource planning extremely difficult for the programs. And this is not just true for San Diego program, this is true for every CCA program. The PG&E and Southern California Edison, just like SDG&E, have their PCIA rates that they set each year, and the programs in the other IOU, utility territories, they experience the same thing. We also get limited notice about what the rate's going to be. We don't find out until November of each year what the rate's going to be the following year, which gives us not much time to sort out issues and problems with the methodology. And similarly, it makes it very difficult to plan and commit budgetary resources to certain projects or programs. The other problem that we have is a transparency issue. It just turns out to be very difficult to get data in the time that's available. We do our best to request as much information as possible, but the Public Utilities Commission hasn't required the utilities to post a lot of the information that we need. So we have to go through the discovery process and the rate proceedings, meaning we have to use the formal process for requesting documents and so forth, and that all can lead to delays. We tried to change the schedule, and we tried to request more data, but only been successful in a few of those efforts, and these continue to be problems with the PCIA. I guess I should also mention that another problem here is there's a long-term end in sight. We really don't have any kind of there's a sunset date or any kind of near-term end in sight for the PCIA. So it's expected to go on. If you think about a contract that was signed this year for SDC, like for SDG&E, and as a 20-year contract, it would be eligible for the PCIA, and some of those costs would be recoverable from CCA customers for 19 years. So that's a long time, pushing us out into 2040. It's a really long time. So you can go on to the next slide, please, Sebastian. So that is certainly problematic as well. The current status of in terms of the regulatory proceedings, there are 3 different proceedings going on right now related to the PCIA. There's a rulemaking proceeding where the actual rules are developed, and the rules are being tweaked. I think that what's going on in that proceeding right now is that there are negotiations between the utilities, the direct access providers, and the CCA programs over an allocation process that would provide some limited relief, and it would permit CCA programs to access some of the power in the utility portfolio. Unfortunately, there was some discussion about having a more comprehensive approach that would involve actually the utility actually divesting some of its contracts to downsize its portfolio, and that really nothing has come of that, unfortunately. That would involve actually assigning contracts with third parties and the like. We're also involved in the SDG&E era forecast proceeding, which I mentioned earlier. It's a proceeding where the PCIA is set each year. Will be, as long as there's the PCIA, will be involved in the proceeding where it's set to make sure that we get that the rules are followed and that the methods are followed as prescribed by the Public Utilities Commission. And then currently there are some limits on how much the utility can collect each year. through the PCIA, and if they reach a certain threshold, they're able to basically eliminate those limits and recover the additional amount due. And so there's what's called a PCIA trigger application that's been filed. So we're dealing with those increases right now, and those are over and above the limit, the annual limit for the PCIA. So it's this certainly occupies a lot of our time, and it certainly occupies a lot of the attention of the program itself. And the same is true for all the CCA programs across the state. Go ahead, Sebastian, thanks. So what are our strategies to deal with the PCIA? They fall into these three general categories. Regulatory is basically the process that I've described, which is advocating in the regulatory arena. And we have different specific regulatory strategies around that. A lot of our efforts are simply geared toward making sure that the utilities follow the methodology that the Public Utilities Commission laid out. And some of that has to do with interpretation of the rules, and certainly some of that just has to do with making sure that the right amounts are reflected in the calculations and that the methodology is consistent with the decisions that have been issued. I will just mention that while we have been able to get some relief in specific PCIA applications, the numbers are still on an upward trend, and we made a big effort to advance reforms in the PCIA in 2017 and 2018, and those efforts were ultimately largely unsuccessful. And so the view at the Public Utilities Commission has become fairly entrenched that they have the right formula, and that they are making sure that the utility customers aren't subsidizing or paying for the CCA customers. That has become a very entrenched view, I think, throughout the Public Utilities Commission. It's not one that I share. And it's not one that a lot of other CCA programs share, but nevertheless, that is, I think that's a fair characterization of the status of things right now. Our other strategy is legal. We have, as you may know, STCP participated in a lawsuit that challenged, it was actually an appeal of the 2018 decision. Challenge from the Public Utilities Commission challenging certain aspects of that decision in the Court of Appeal. It was denied. So we haven't been very successful with our legal efforts either. And then finally, legislative. This is the one arena where I think we haven't seen a PCIA bill or a piece of legislation that directly addresses this floated or advanced to date. So these are our main avenues right now. I think throughout this year, our primary focus has been on regulatory as it was in the past, and trying to work out some accommodation with the utilities over this allocation process that I was describing. But as of right now, we have really not seen too much progress on that front. We are expecting a decision about what's called portfolio optimization, which is a term that's used for the concept that the PCIA can be addressed by better addressed by managing the utility portfolios so that they reflect the customers who remained rather than the total group of customers who were with the utility prior to CCA service, prior to the CCA program forming and customers leaving. So I think that's all. I might maybe have one more slide, Sebastian. Yeah, that's it. So that's the overview and just the big picture. And so I wanted to just kind of lay the groundwork for some questions and some discussion about that. But let me stop and and see if there's any questions or comments at this point.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Kai, and thank you for this presentation.
Sure.
I'm quite sure I've asked this question before because it amazes me.
Mhm.
We're required to pay for energy that SDG&E bought,
Correct.
but we don't receive that energy.
Nope, you can't use it. You can't touch it. That's
Right. So they can sell whatever we're buying in these 20-year contracts on the open market.
Yeah, the utilities are supposed to, if they do those types of sales, they are supposed to, offset the PCIA with revenue from those sales. But we're just not seeing very much of that.
But that's the law, but we're not seeing that.
Yeah, we're just not seeing very much of those sales.
Okay, and second question is, what do you believe the outcome may be? Where do you think all this is going to land, and how will that affect San Diego Community Power?
It's right now at this point, I don't see much of a change in the status quo on the horizon. And certainly with our regulatory efforts, I think that we pushed and pushed and pushed as hard as we can. We'll continue to do so. But at this point, that those efforts aren't headed toward any sort of comprehensive solution. They're sort of working around on smaller issues, and we're just not seeing the kind of significant progress that would help us drive down the charge. And so I think at this point in time, it makes a lot of sense, at least for me, to reconsider strategies and reconsider what it is that we should be doing and what we need to be doing to deal with this issue. Because some of these costs are, what the PCIA charges, they are really, they become cost prohibitive. If you want to maintain rates that are close to the utilities rates, and you have this PCIA charge, you're extremely limited in what you're able to do in terms of investing in programs and so forth. And a lot of the things that I think people who supported SDCP and the formation of CCA programs in San Diego want to see is essentially those things are being thwarted by this charge because it's takes up so much of the budget.
Right. And lastly, and then I'll go to questions. I see a hand raised. Lastly, you said there's been virtually nothing done on the legislative side of this.
We haven't seen, I know there have been some discussions about that, and I will just caveat that by saying that I typically don't get involved in the legislative efforts, but I do monitor what's going on. And we have not seen a PCIA bill introduced or make any headway in the legislature.
You've seen
some discussion about things being introduced and ideas, but we haven't seen anything. I don't think I've seen anything introduced actually, or much less go anywhere.
Right.
So we are, that is an avenue that I think still has yet to be fully sort of explored and pursued. But I have personally not seen any, I'm not aware of any bills going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tara, and then Gary.
Thank you, Ty. I think this is very good presentation. I appreciate all the time you're spending on this.
Sure.
I would be curious to hear more of your thoughts on legislation to see if it's something we can try to help support, even if San Diego Community Power doesn't as a whole. Maybe there might be individuals interested. I understand SDG&E, the utilities, engage in these longer term contracts for ratepayers, even though we personally aren't asking for it, but I understand that's the model and they expect that and there's expectations for it. But wondering, could there be a fix where they can't be entered information. We can't see what the contract price is for 3 years. And we see it was over the value, but like no one's asking them to engage in these contracts that are overvalued that then we all have to be stuck with. So I don't know if there's ways to, and they talk about cost shifting and they're stuck expecting transmission distribution charges that aren't there if we go solar or move away. Like us go solar, because if you move to San Diego Community Power, you still have the transmission distribution. But it just seems so unfair. And I think this is one of their few last ditch attempts to remain competitive and maintain their monopoly. And so if there's ways for us to do anything about it, feel free to share that.
Sure. Legislation could be structured in any number of ways to get some relief on the PCIA. Appreciate the question. And so, you know, for example, you know, some of the things that we proposed in the 2018 regulatory proceeding would be very suitable, I think, for legislation. One of the things we proposed was a sunset provision for the PCIA, which would give the utilities time to sell off the assets they no longer needed, and including sales to the CCA programs. You know, we also proposed that there be limits on what the eligible contracts are, or utility-owned generation that could be included in the PCIA, which would just, you know, take that number down. So SDG&E, for example, has a number of utility-owned generation projects that are PCIA eligible. You know, their gas plant up in Escondido, and in Otay Mesa, their contract. I guess that's not utility-owned generation. It was going to be, but it's not. But anyway, they have a few other utility-owned generation projects, so we proposed, you know, again, that those not be eligible for the PCIA. There's also methodological fixes. You know, there's different ways to structure the PCIA, and then there's also, you know, the whole, like I was describing earlier, you know, the PCIA is essentially a subtraction problem where you take the total portfolio cost and you subtract it from the market price benchmark. Well, you could, one thing you could do is, as is being, you know, discussed right now, although my understanding is the parties aren't making much headway. But, you know, one thing you could do is you could structure legislation so that that total portfolio costs is lower, you know, by requiring the utilities to allocate that power or to sell off that power or downsize their portfolio. So I think there's a number of things that can be done. The whole issue around above market contracts is a difficult one, admittedly. I don't think that, you know, once the programs launch, the utilities can't add new contracts to the PCIA for those customers. So looking forward at future utility acquisitions and future utility procurement isn't going to do that much. Instead, we need to deal with the portfolio that's been amassed in the past and figure that out. You know, the most, I think, economically efficient thing to do would be to figure out some way to transfer, assign, or otherwise make available the contracts and the utility portfolios for the CCA programs, right? I mean, they were bought for the same customers. The power is available. That seems to be the most, you know, sensible and economically sound approach that would address the needs here. But the utilities have really resisted that. They have been uniformly, they've, you know, put up some barrier. They've uniformly been uninterested in managing their portfolios when it comes to assignments and actually reducing the size of the portfolios. There has been interest, especially from Edison, in the allocation process that I mentioned, which wouldn't actually reduce the PCIA, but the programs would be able to Eddie's point earlier, the programs would be able to essentially use the power in the utility portfolio. So they wouldn't have to buy as much power for their own customers. So there's a number of different solutions out there, and it's a matter of negotiating the political process where the utilities are extremely powerful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for all your work on this and the other regulatory attacks you're working on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Gary and then Matthew.
Yeah, I actually, after that long description, I feel like I'm asking sort of a well, extremely naive question, but there was a point right when SDCP was really in the formation stage where SDG&E was making noises they wanted to get out of their out of the generation business. And you know, it would make sense because they don't make any significant profit on generation. They make all their profit on distribution. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of silver lining in the near future where they just say, well, we give up, we're going to sell our generation assets and contracts to the CCAs.
Yeah, there has been discussion about that, and SDG&E has, they a couple of years ago they sent a letter to a state legislator indicating that they wanted to get out of the procurement generation business. Since that time, there has not been any concrete steps taken that I'm aware of toward SDG&E departing the generation business. My operating assumption is that until they take those steps, we should treat them as a typical utility. Is going to be around until the end of time. I think the questions that come up around and just to kind of share with you how I think about it, the questions that come up around SDG&E potentially departing the generation business is, if that's true, when and under what terms? Their proposal to the state legislator had, required a substantial buyout of their portfolio, had some other onerous terms that would be, I think, problematic. The terms they're willing to go out on may not be the terms that are acceptable to the rest of us or the state. I personally, I don't put much stock in that, I guess, until I see more concrete steps. I'm not putting much stock in the fact that they've been saying that they're going to leave. We don't know when, especially since we don't have any information about when or when that might be, or what again, I guess we have a little bit, but not too much detail about what those terms might be. So I think that would be, I think many people would welcome SDG&E's departure from generation and procurement, and certainly would simplify things for us in many ways. There would be some added complexity as well, but I think overall it would simplify things. But I just don't see any concrete steps taken in that direction, other than what we've been talking about, this letter that was sent.
All right, Matthew?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ty. This was an excellent explainer. I really appreciated it. I think the thing for me, because interestingly enough, a lot of my advocacy work started around PCIA in 2018 and trying to get folks to kind of stop that alternative judgment, which ended up being the judgment.
I remember.
No, it was crazy fun times. It did not work out. But I think the overarching point and it's not necessarily a question, it's just a comment to the group, is just for folks to kind of understand that the PCIA is like an existential threat to CCA programs across the state. Like, it is not just something that's like we pay into and, it can go up and go down. Like, it can kill a program by shifting customers away if the CCA program cannot match the price point. I mean, because ultimately that's why customers are going to come to SDCP, is that we can offer a more affordable rate. So I think that scares me. Like, this is something that really does keep me up at night, because we're already starting to see CCA programs in Northern California dealing in PG&E territory that, I mean, they're going to have to start dipping into their reserves just to offer a competitive rate to the IOU. So I mean, I think in terms of solutions, laying out regulatory, legal, and legislative, like regulatory, I think time and time again has shown like there just is not, like, there isn't a path there. Like, we keep getting slapped down. Legally, the courts won't even take up the case. Like, just as Ty mentioned, it completely got pushed out. The only hope that we really have is through legislative action. And I don't know, as we as like a CAC board or SDCP, how much we can lean and push into that. But ultimately, I only see that as being the path forward to prevent, again, this threat to, this organization's very existence from getting out of hand. And I will say, just given the IOU that we do have with SDG&E, they will not be nice to us on this. Like, they will utilize PCIA in any means and any ways necessary to hold us back and to keep us down. And so I don't want anyone to think, for a second that like SDG&E will all of a sudden at one point be like, well, let's find a way to work this out. Like, they will find a way to curtail this program with PCIA, just as they tried to curtail us at every step of the way to forming this organization. So again, not really a question, more just a series of statements just to make it clear that this is a very dangerous thing. And I hope that we can, as a group, be very attentive to it.
Amen.
Thank you, Matthew. Any more questions?
I think Tom's raising his hand.
Again? Oh, okay. Tom? I'm sorry, Tom.
Quite all right. Hey, thanks a lot, Ty. I detected a significant amount of pessimism in your presentation. I'm also a lot of pessimism from the CCAs up north. My question is, are any of them losing clients? Excuse me. Just before this Zoom call, I got an email that broke down some of the, it was from the California Alliance, broke down some of the comparisons, cost comparisons of average utility bills of customers in the CCAs up north. And, but I didn't get a chance to study it. So I'm wondering if any of the CCAs are losing clients because of this PCIA situation. And can you speak to that?
Tom, you mean you losing customers?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a hard thing to pin down because you got to survey folks who opted out, and so that would be a program by program type of survey. So I'm not aware of any data out there showing that customers have opted out due to PCIA. Certainly, what you would expect to see is you'd expect to see maybe a change in the opt-out rates. Usually when CCA programs form, they have a pretty low opt-out rate, meaning the take-up is pretty substantial for eligible customers. In many cases, it's been like 98-99% of customers that have taken up the program and not opted out. But it fluctuates. I don't know. I'm not aware of customers opting out, but I think that a lot of folks, myself included, think that if the PCIA got so high that it forced the CCA rates, significantly above the utility rates, we'd start to see significant opt-outs. And I think we haven't, fortunately, been able to avoid testing out that hypothesis to date, but we may not be able to much longer. And maybe the case that, if the PCIA continues to escalate, that we may start seeing, significant customer opt-outs, which, presents its own problems when you're buying long-term power contracts.
Yeah. Did you see that by any chance? Did you see that thing that came from, actually, I guess it came from the CPUC, but it's basically a how green and how cheap are Northern California CCAs versus.
I saw that particular one, Tom, no.
Okay. Yeah, I just got it just before we sat down for this, and it's pretty interesting. and I haven't had a chance to go through it point by point, but it compares all of the average bills from each of the CCAs and the percentages of renewables that they market, and whether or not what percent below PG&E's rates are, and I see some of them are above. I just wondered just what the effects of all that were. It's kind of scary, and I agree with Matthew that this is definitely a poison pill for us that we need to be wary of. So, thanks for your presentation, Ty.
Sure. Unless there are other questions, I do want to mention that I think I don't want anyone to be dissuaded from voicing their opinion about this to the program. I mean, this affects everybody. It does get wonky, it gets technical, and there's certainly resources in and outside of the program to sort of get a better understanding of what's happening. But my personal view is that this group has a say and should have a say in this matter in its advisory capacity. So I want I don't hear anybody shying away from stating their opinion so far, which is good. But I would encourage everybody to the extent this group wants to take make some sort of statement or communicate its view on this matter. I don't want people to shy away because this issue is technical or overly legal or anything like that. So I just wanted to make that communicate that to everybody, I should say.
Okay. I see 3 hands up and they've already spoken. You want to speak again, Gary?
Yeah, I just want, I think the clear message here is that we've got to get to our legislators. And so I want to suggest as a future action, we try to get, each of us get in contact with our assembly member and state senator and try to get a presentation from them and a wish list from us to them about addressing this from the legislative side.
Yeah.
I have a thought, which is dangerous sometimes. I understand that the PCIA is a horrendous thing, and it has the ability to really potentially kill us, actually. But we're real focused on that and not focused on the money, right? That could be generated. So what are you saying, Eddie? I'm saying while we're looking at it and have, Ty doing what he's doing with the PCIA and legally and all that kind of stuff, I'm thinking we may need to be looking at other ways to lower that bill also. Whether it's community solar, some of the things we've talked about today, whether it's community solar, a deluge of rooftop solar, solar in Mexico, different ways to bring that bill down while we're under attack from this PCIA. It's just, my mind operates outside of the box most of the time. So I just wanted to put that out there. While we're thinking about the PCIA, some of us maybe, think about other ways to keep the bill that our clients will receive, our customers will receive, manageable, irrespective of the PCIA. And if that comes down or becomes manageable, it's just that much better for our customers. So I just wanted to put that out there also. So Ty, in addition to you doing legal work, I'm gonna need you to start doing some work, finding us some solar areas out here.
I got some boots and tools, and so give me a call.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Are there any more questions? Okay, not seeing any, and my agenda disappeared. Okay, we're at number 9. Is everybody done with Mr. Tosdale? Because I see a 6-foot wave out there behind you, Ty.
Thanks for having me, everybody, and appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
On behalf of the program, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Number 9. Discussion of potential agenda items for board of directors meetings. I had one. I forgot what it was though. Does anybody remember what I said earlier about moving it to number 9?
I wrote it down. Hold on.
Hey, give me some help, y'all. Give me some help. Give me some, please.
Did you want to forward the public comment, the substance of it, to the board? Is that the?
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I believe that's it.
You beat me to my notes. I was scrolling back to look at my notes.
Yeah, I believe that was it. Would we like to, I guess, take a vote to see if we want to move that comment, put it on the agenda for the board of directors? And if anybody wrote this down, can you restate what that comment was?
She was talking about Sebastian was going to talk. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Sorry, I'm going to make a suggestion that can also work, but go ahead, Tara, and I can mention that suggestion. So Eddie, Chair Price, if you recall, starting this month, for every board agenda, there will be a standing community advisory committee report. And so that's an opportunity for you to mention what the committee has talked about. And since this committee has talked about that community solar program, then that could be an avenue for you to bring that comment up without taking a vote. I see that as the most clean way to do so, if that sounds good to you.
Okay. So I would like to ask that everybody that wrote it down, could you send it to me? Because as you can tell, I couldn't remember what it was and we still in the meeting. So please, somebody could write it down and send it to me and I will definitely present it at the board meeting.
And I have the notes, but they don't include everything she said, but I could tell she was reading it. So
Okay.
I'm going to reach out to Erica to see if she'll share her comment in writing she read, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tara, go ahead.
Yeah, Tara.
I think the message I got, which I've talked to Erica about it, I've talked to Bill, the CEO, about it, is ensuring we don't miss this deadline for the opportunity for community solar. And so I think finding out what Sebastian's working on it, having Sebastian present an update to the board. And their meeting is next week because of Thanksgiving. So it's not 2 weeks after, as we had moved our meeting to plan. But I think that you don't need a whole report from Erica. I think just getting an update from Sebastian that we're doing something to either preserve that timeline or acting on it now so we don't lose that opportunity for these community solar projects and communities of concern in the future.
Okay. So with that being said, Anna, if you could actually get me that or get us that report from Erica, and then me and Sebastian will discuss how we're going to present it to the board. Is that okay?
That's great, sure. Because like I said, I could tell she was reading it, so I'm sure she has it
I think
typed
she
up.
mentioned that also. I think she said she was reading it.
Yeah, she can just email it. So I'll reach out to her.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The other thing is we're also recording this meeting, and I'll post it later this afternoon, and I can find the snippet of where Erica made the comment and share that with you, Chair Price.
Okay. Thank you. Committee member announcements.
Wait. I had a couple other recommendations.
Uh-oh, I didn't see your hand. Yeah, I see it now, but my challenge is I only see 3 people on the screen. So if you're not one of those 3, I don't see you. So if you guys could raise your hand raise your Zoom hand, and then I'll try to see it over there.
I don't think we have the option for Zoom hand. It was there at the beginning of the meeting and then it went away.
It should be there.
It's a different hand gesture, Tara. There's one, I know it's weird. I had to go into participants and then at the bottom of it, you'll see like a raise hand button.
Got it. Okay. Raise my hand.
I know I learned it today too.
Thank
Yes, Tara.
you. I did want to bring up two regulatory items that I think would be kind of piggybacking off of what Ty discussed today. I don't know if that's planned to discuss at the next meeting, but there is this growing momentum for the sunsetting PCIA that the California Alliance for Community Choice Energy is working on. So I think discussing that could be important. So I'd like to suggest that. And then net metering 3.0, I mentioned it briefly during the NEM presentation, but the utilities have made a truly, truly terrible proposal. All three investor and utilities submitted proposals to the Public Utilities Commission. They want to end net metering. They want to end grandfathering starting in January, and they want to have solar be a 25-year payback. They've made proposals that have been very bad in the past for net metering 2.0. A huge coalition, we worked very hard to make it where solar still made sense, just a little less attractive financially. But this is a very big attack. I know Ty is aware of it, but I highly recommend getting this on the agenda and having San Diego Community Power write a letter. It's ultimately up to the commissioners. Governor Newsom has appointed, he has influence over the commissioners. So I would recommend that San Diego Community Power writes a letter to the commissioners as well as the governor asking to not kill rooftop solar. If they successfully do this in California, because they feel like we can reach our 100% clean energy goals using desert solar, that is short-sighted, because the rest of the country, there will be states that will pass this. And those are states that are using a lot of coal, natural gas, and have no pathway to 100% clean energy. So it's absolutely the opposite direction we want to go on so many levels. But that is my long-winded recommendation for the agenda.
So you want to recommend that as a potential agenda item for the board?
Yes, for them to take an act to discuss net metering 3.0, but specifically, I would recommend that they write a letter to the governor and CC the commissioners, letting them know how this would impact San Diego Community Power, and it's sending a bad signal. Like we're trying to get to zero carbon and meet climate goals and prioritize equity and not penalize people who have made the investment in solar.
Okay, Sebastian, what is the mechanics of this? Getting this, first of all, let me ask the rest of the committee members, do we need to vote on this? Should we vote on this recommendation by Vice Chair Hammond to send an agenda item to the board?
I don't think a vote will be, unless there's major disagreements.
What are the mechanics?
So I'm just thinking on, because of the holiday, we did move the board meeting a week before. And so on the PCIA, as you know, Tara, we're working very, very diligently on that. And Ty, I noticed he left already. He's working very, very hard on that. We have other firms working on that as well. So just wanted to say that on the NEM 3.0, I'm just a little bit hesitant on the capacity side. I keep going back to that we can bring the staff report and everything that is needed for next Thursday. So I'm certainly happy to take this to Cody and Bill. And would that be, if everything goes straight through, would you be comfortable with this perhaps being a December item? That would give us a little bit more time.
Well, I think this is a timely matter, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Tara?
January 1st.
Well, so the utilities are proposing to strip protections, and they also want to revisit anyone who has ever gone solar, revisit their protections. But this probably won't be decided on until next fall. So in some ways, I feel like the sooner we get those really bad part thrown out, it will help provide certainty for those who are making decisions regarding clean energy investments, but we won't know for several months. So if it had to go till December, I'm fine with that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I just wanted to real quick say, in going back the notes, there is a time constraint on Erica Morgan's, the information she provided. Because I specifically wrote down that the SDCP must claim its allocation for underserved communities by January 1st.
Yes, it has to by the end of this year.
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend we bring that for the Thursday meeting to the board. And yeah, item 9 says discussion of potential agenda items. I wouldn't think we would have to vote on that either, as long as there's no objection.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
Thanks.
I saw Mr. Lopez's hand. Ed, you don't have a question any longer?
I think it's been resolved essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have an announcement.
You have an announcement? Well, I see Vice Chair Hammond's, this is hard to say, Vice Chair Hammond's hand is still up.
Oh, that was, I didn't know you had to lower it. Got it, done, thanks.
Okay, Sebastian.
Yeah, just wanted to share a piece of good news, and this ties to you, Eddie. I'll brought up how it came about, and then Eddie, I know we talked about this, so hopefully you remember. So a couple of months ago, it was like a Saturday night, and I got an email from a certain state agency, and I'll let Eddie talk about the specifics. And they had an award nomination process going on, and it was the tail end of this nomination process, and it had been extended already. So I didn't have any time to notify anyone that I was going to submit this application for them. And I submitted the application just out of a whim, not thinking it was going to go anywhere. And
thanks, Sebastian.
You're welcome. And so I think it was a week ago or so, Eddie and I get an email back, and then Eddie, if you want to share the results of that and the state agency and what.
Yeah, it was the Energy Commission, State of California Energy Commission. It's an award. It's an award that they're doing for the first time. Showcase award, or something. I'm gonna try to find it. But it's an actual honor. Actually, yesterday I had a conversation with the chair of the Energy Commission, congratulating me and 3 other people on receiving this award. I never thought, I don't do all this for awards. You know what I mean? Half the time I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going, right? And it's an honor. Actually, it's an honor. I can't find, can you find the email, Sebastian?
Yeah, I know what the information is about, and I can share it if
okay.
You want, Eddie.
Yeah, because you see I'm having problems here, dude.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give you the spotlight, but yeah, the Energy Commission is doing a new set of awards to acknowledge community leaders that have really changed the game to advance California's climate goals. And there's 3 sets of awards, and Eddie's is the Clean Energy Award. And the best part of this, at least for me, is that you get inducted into the Clean Energy Hall of Fame for the state of California. And
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and really, at least for me, like obviously, in my eye, all of you are clean energy champions. Sorry. But I wanted to highlight Eddie mostly because, you know, a conversation I've had with you, Eddie, is to elevate voices of those that have been left behind for a long time. And I think the work that you've done, you know, being everywhere at once and also moving the needle on having us adopt communities of concern here in the region has really, you know, everyone's using it now. So so anyways, all of you are the first group to know about this, and we're very excited that they chose Eddie and that they're acknowledging San Diego, because oftentimes we're left behind from the rest of the state. So congrats, Eddie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, it's all of us, right? I'm not in this alone, right? I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. I'm just trying to move forward, right? And trying to do the right thing. And, you know, it's just an honor. You know, I told my little brother about it yesterday and he almost had a heart attack because he knows where I come from. You know what I mean? He knows the story of my life. So thank you, Sebastian.
Yeah.
And thank everybody on the call.
Good job,
Yeah.
Eddie.
Thank you.
And just so you guys are aware, our plan is to obviously announce it to you all first. We're gonna announce it to the board next Thursday, and then there's an award ceremony on December 10th, right, Eddie? I think it is.
Yeah.
And
At
then
2 p.m.
yeah, and
No,
we're
no,
gonna.
Yeah, maybe December 10th. I believe so.
And we're gonna do a series of social media engagement just to drive some traffic. So so yeah, sorry for going a little bit longer on that, but just wanted to share that cool award.
Thank you. Thank you. And without any further ado, I believe the meeting is over.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you all.